Is the Shadow Culture Secretary and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Harman. You got this draft press release from Hacked Off, didn't you, saying you should be ashamed of yourself and that it was a dirty deal. I mean, it looks a lot like you were scared of Hugh Grant.
Yes, we did see the press release, but the reason why we've come out with the proposals, the joint proposals between Labour and the Liberal Democrats that we have done today, is that we've always been clear that we must have an independent system that's got proper teeth. That's always been our view. That's what Leveson said needed to happen.
But were you always demanding that this would be underpinned by law? Because what was being said last week was that you were prepared to accept a royal charter, and that position suddenly hardened after you'd taken a load of calls from Hugh Grant and Hacked Off. How many times did you speak to Hacked Off last week?
Oh, absolutely regularly. We make no apology for having the concerns of the victims absolutely at the heart of this. The victims is the reason why the Leveson inquiry was set up, the fact that people had suffered their lives being turned upside down. But we'd always said that, and we said this in evidence to Leveson, and Lord Leveson himself said it in his report, that it's really important that the proposals don't slip back, that basically the good intentions are not expressed by the press. They promise to change their ways, they promise to set up a new system, but then they fall back to their old ways.
Did your position change at all last week?
No, it didn't. We always wanted to make sure that the Leveson proposals were implemented, that there should be independent regulation, and that the regulator should have proper teeth to demand apologies, and also that it's all underpinned by law so that ministers can't tamper with it and the press can't lean on ministers to tamper with the system.
What happens if the newspapers don't sign up to this, if they don't want to join it? What happens to them?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we've worked so hard to reach agreement across all the political parties, because I think it's much harder for the press to refuse to engage in a system if actually all the parties stand together and say this is the new framework.
But what happens if they do?
Well,
I mean, what happens if they say, look, you've been bullied by a bunch of celebrities like Hugh Grant, and we're not going to sign up to your system? What would you do?
Well, I think first off, what we're talking about is a report that came from a public inquiry. We're talking about implementing a report which came from a public inquiry set up by the Prime Minister with the support of all parties. So the idea of the press saying, oh, you know, we don't want to do any of this, they should think long and hard about that.
But what happens if they do?
Well, I think that they will agree to it, and I hope that actually even before we get to Monday, we will get that cross-party agreement, which I think is so important, because the press have always done divide and rule, and we don't want the press using as an excuse to not comply with this new framework. Oh, well, the Prime Minister doesn't agree with us. So I hope that we can reach an agreement and we can say politicians from all parties are standing shoulder to shoulder with the victims and making sure that we have two rights protected. The right of freedom of speech, the right to have free publications in the newspapers, but also the right of victims not to have their lives turned upside down.
Sounds like a busy weekend of negotiations. Harman, thank you.